Testing. Testing. Testing, testing.
Teamwork.
Yeah, okay, everyone can hear me, right? Okay. Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, our friends here, Noel and Mark, think they can come to Borneo and be champions again. To which I say, Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, ABK says, Lain Kalila. What do we propose? What is our position in today's debate? We think that Borneo, which includes Sabah and Sarawak, should secede from Malaysia to better able to determine its future and not be held ransom to what the federal government wants. We think for far too long, Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, the federal government has disproportionately allocated resources to benefit the people over there than the people who deserve it far more here. Individuals have to leave Sabah and Sarawak to obtain employment, to obtain future. Individuals who are stuck here oftentimes are stuck in rural areas with lacking electricity, resources, and limited ability to self-actualize. And we think that's incredibly harmful. What will I talk to you about in my speech? Firstly, I'll tell you why staying in Malaysia will not be good for Borneo, like Sabah and Sarawak. Secondly, I'll tell you why Borneo has the right to secede. And thirdly, I'll tell you why Borneo is better off with self-determination. But before that, let's look at a little context, right? When do states secede, essentially? We think states secede when there are three key yardsticks, right? Firstly, when there's important cultural differences. Secondly, when there's a disproportionate allocation of its resources, right? A lot like what happened with North and South Sudan. Thirdly, when there's systematic disenfranchisement of communities. So what is the problem in today's debate? And it's linked to those three things I told you. Firstly, we think there's a different culture and political climate, right? We looked at how the federal government looked at the Allah issue as an infringement on Muslim rights and how it's so important to the practice of the Christians who are a majority in Sarawak. We look at how a lot of Borneans identify themselves as Borneans first, or Sabahans first, or Sarawak first, and then Malaysians, right? We look at how Sabah and Sarawak was originally, this is a political difference, it was originally intended to be equal partners to the Federation of Malaya, and now it has been reduced to one of the 14 states. This is incredibly important to remember. Secondly, we think there's a disproportionate allocation of resources with regards to things like timber and with regards to things like petrol, right? We think there's pittance allocated to the state government with regards to royalties, right? And a large chunk goes to the federal government, right? Sure. Thirdly, not yet, Mark, I thought we already agreed you wouldn't PR me in the first 3 minutes. Third part of it, right? We think there's systematic disenfranchisement, right? With regards to how democracy was supposed to work in these two states. Talk about Operation IC in Sabah, how the dilution of voters and dilution of sovereignty. We talk about how the Allah issue was trumped up, right? We think all these things, and also look at the great income disparity within individuals in these areas, shows that the federal government has failed to honor its side of the agreement. What is our mechanism in today's debate? We think that the UN should arbitrate this process, right? We think it's like, for example, any process with regards to secession. We think a referendum will be carried out and this will only go through with a 2/3 majority if the citizens agree. We think that standing armies can already be provided with regards to the UN providing peacekeepers, right? We think the Sarawak Rangers already exist, and we're very proud of our Sarawak Rangers that already exist to defend that state from external influences, right? We think a new constitution will be drawn up to completely revamp the old system of tyranny that we have from the federal government, right? To move away from that kind of process, right? We think trends already show of voters moving towards opposition, especially more enlightened voters, right? Showing a rejection of the federal government, right? What are the conditions or what are the concessions we will make in this debate? We agree. This will not be an easy process. There will be birthing pains like any birth of the nation, right? There will be countries who will be antagonistic towards us, right? But at the same time, we think there will be friends and new political alliances that we can form. The same thing that happened to Malaysia when it started out also, right? We think it won't be immediate, whatever benefits won't be immediate also, right? So we think all these things can be taken into account.
So,
moving into the first idea, but before that, yeah.
So, federal governments ensures that there is collective distribution towards the entire nation. When the population of Sabah and Sarawak is lesser than that of Peninsula, how is that economic?
Sabah and Sarawak have 20% of the population. We do not think 20% of the wealth of the country has been allocated to Sabah and Sarawak. We think it has not been collected, Mark. Of course, it would look like that where it's coming from, right? On the first argument, right, we think why staying in Malaysia will not be good for Borneo. We think firstly, the federal government is incredibly entrenched with regards to the system of Sabah and Sarawak, right? BN looks at Sabah and Sarawak as a fixed deposit. That means check and balances are inherently weak within Sabah and Sarawak. So it's a systematic problem you cannot change if you say, let's stick with status quo. Secondly, we think cash handouts also make changes difficult to happen and make elections much more difficult to win with regards to individuals being predisposed to those things, right? Secondly, we think welfare is politicized and only benefiting the federal government. We think systematic disenfranchisement also makes it difficult for changes to happen, right? So like regulation, the system fails to regulate itself. And thirdly, why should Borneans have to wait any longer for change if they propose a slow organic change? We think they need the change now because it's about self-actualization, right? Why does Borneo have the right to secede? Second argument. We think there's a violation of the initial contract, the positions that these both parties came into being, right? Because they were supposed to be equal partners, but it's been a violation with that rights with regards to the federal-state relationship, right? I think the unique relationship has broken down with regards to the constitution being amended to allow for greater tyranny to exist from the federal government over these particular two states, right? But on the last idea, why is Borneo better off with self-determination? We think it's important to self-determine because you get the kind of representation that's important. Currently, Sarawakians vote BN simply because, it's not because of loyalty, but it's because they feel that there's the only person that can help them, right? They have no other viable option. That's why they have to opt out of this oppressive system, right? We think also there will be a better belonging as a result because now when you have a new Bornean state, we think there's a new nationalism with regards to the Bornean pride, right? We think having your own state means that you put your own interests and your own people and you'll be able to prioritize that, right? We think the diaspora of Borneans will come back to Sabah and Sarawak and reinforce the identity of Sabah and Sarawak. We think we've waited far too long for what we deserve, ladies and gentlemen. And it's time to take what is ours back.